December 10th, 2013 regular meeting. With no additions or corrections, I'll entertain that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd love to make that motion.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the December 10th, 2013 regular meeting. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 2 is to receive, place on trial range repairs. I'm not aware of any that come in. Moving on to item number 3, approve merit pay increase for Alyssa Sparks to $1,203.84, effective paycheck date January 10th, 2014, per recommendation of Jessica Wehrmont, Child Support Recovery Institute.
I'll move item 3.
Second.
Second, we approve the merit pay increase for Alyssa Sparks. Question or comments on the motion?
Yes. What is merit
They're child support recovery unit employees who are under the state parent system. And they get paid every 2 weeks a certain amount.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 4 is to approve the hiring and employment of Emily A. Elkin, case manager, effective January 2nd, 2014, at the rate of $17.60 per hour per recommendation of Community Services.
Mr. Chairman, I move item number 4. Second.
Second, we approve the hiring and employment of Emily A. Elkin. Questions or comments there? Receiving none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And number 5 is to approve the request by Pam Jorgensen, LMSW, to terminate contract with Webster County for services provided to the Friendship Center effective November 30th, 2014.
Mr. Chairman, I move item 5.
I'll second that.
Then moved and seconded to approve the request to terminate contract with Webster County for services provided at Friendship Center. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 6 is to consider professional service agreement with Hale Architecture for the Webster County Law Enforcement Center courtroom remodeling project.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to table consideration of service agreement.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we consider professional service agreement with Hale. Excuse me, that we table. All in favor of the
I'd like discussion on that. And just for the public's information, we moved to table because
I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
we can't have discussion on that.
You haven't voted on it.
Go ahead,
This motion
discuss.
is going to be to table, we can still discuss it as well.
Good.
Are we okay with that?
Okay, I'm fine with that. Yes.
Okay. No, that we had a presentation by Hale Architecture this morning and decided that we needed to have some more internal discussion with design team and the Corps and regarding the scope of the project and things like that. So that's why we decided to table this.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to table, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. No. Motion carried. Item number 7, Jack Bradley, Webster County Environmental Health Department, to discuss adopting a water well and cistern ordinance. Mr. Bradley?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This ordinance was precipitated by some water samples that I took in the summer of 2012. The 4 out of the 6 samples I took for time of transfer were unsafe. And a couple of those had fecal water, could include E. coli. And after giving information to the property owner or the realtor, mostly the property owner, really were involved in this very much. time transfer were open wells. Some were 2 foot in diameter, 18 inches in diameter. Some had 6 inches of uncovered area where animals can get into these wells. And we consider that fecal coliform has E. coli in it. It's considered a safety issue and a health issue for the residents of the county. So without any information and no state law that I can even give to anybody or state to anybody how to correct this, this is a vehicle of the ordinance. I know it's not favorable for the realtors because it sometimes relates to sales of homes. But this, I tell you, will not, because we cannot override the transfer law. That's already in effect by Iowa code. So all it is a means of providing information to the buyer that there is a well that is not safe, even though it comes back with a safe sample. 10 minutes, or 20 minutes after that, an animal could fall in that well. And some of these are large animals, raccoons. You can have ground hogs, you know, snakes, salamanders, you name it. You know, there's another sample I just took 2 weeks ago. This is involving a pregnant woman. And this was an open well. And this had E. coli. It wasn't a time of transfer. But I can inform this owner of the circumstance of that well. And they can do what they want to, but I don't have any control over how they do that. But when a buyer buys a property, I think they deserve the right to know and to have safe water when they transfer that title. And a lot of these people that buy property in the city, they just assume, and everybody just assumes their water is safe. And at this time, in 2013, that you have an open well, in my opinion, that's almost a disgrace to the health and safety information we know today. And not to provide that to the buyers of the properties, I think, is irresponsible. So, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
On hearing of this, we'll move on to item number 8.
Some comments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Some comments?
Yes.
I'm Rick Peters, I'm with the, call back with Realtors, and I'm here on behalf of Chris Parker and our association, representative association, and some clients that have bought and sold acreages in the past. Unfortunately, they did not have time to be here on such short notice. Now, first thing that I believe is drastically wrong with this ordinance is it goes beyond health and goes into safety, and I don't believe the health department is in charge of safety. I think that's a separate issue. When it comes to cisterns, how well staffed, I believe that's beyond their scope. When it comes to water quality, it probably is within their scope. But when they talk about snakes, salamanders, lizards entering wells, they can enter through ground sources too, as well as ones from the tops. The larger animals probably not, but the small ones most certainly can. We have never had a requirement that a realtor become party to a contract. That's what this ordinance requires, because it says if it's not complied with, a realtor or agent can be held accountable. We're not party to the real estate sales contract. We're merely providing negotiations in the transaction and helping the buyer and seller come together with terms and execute the contract. We're not responsible for a buyer or seller covering something up, hiding details. Maybe it's an inherited acreage that has a hidden cistern on it that nobody knows about. An old abandoned well that's got 3 foot dirt over it. If this comes up later in life, who's responsible? Who's accountable? This ordinance says we are part of that chain, and that's quite frankly wrong. Another issue is that there's never been a requirement to issue any sort of documentation to any form of government body prior to the time of transfer. Those are all time of transfer documents. They're generally all signed by a client at the same time. They're brought to the courthouse and they're recorded. When it comes to inspections, that is something that is of negotiations between buyers and sellers. A lot of lenders do require well inspections, and that's the buyer's responsibility then through his lender to secure an adequate well inspection. The cost as such is negotiated between a buyer and seller, not dictated by a government law. another issue that comes up when we get into really looking at the details are commonwealths. 1 house out of 10 is sold. The commonwealth has an issue. We're telling the seller he's responsible. That might not be true. There could be an association that's responsible as opposed to a seller. And again, if these things are good at the time of transfer, they go bad a month later, which can happen. How is this rule going to help us sort out who's really responsible and culpable for the problem? I think it creates more questions than it does answers. If this is under that great of a need, under the health issue for inspections, it's very simple to pass a rule that in the county that says all wells will be inspected for water quality at time transfer, or prior to time transfer for a water quality test. Most buyers want to know that well is good first, and that is already taken care of. Very seldom do they go without it, unless it's an old abandoned acreage and they're going to come and rebuild it, probably drill a new well. So again, if this is something of that nature that needs this much of a law behind it, this should be at a state level, not a county level. I think it should go through legislature and it should be passed for statewide if it's really an issue. It's not a county issue. So I guess the final comment is just that I understand where Jack is coming from. I just think before anything like this should move forward at all, it needs a lot further consideration. And my point and preference is that it should go to consideration by the state, not the local level. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else care to address us concerning this issue? Okay. Now moving on to item number 8.
But that was, when is it, or when will be appropriate for us to discuss?
Well, we have,
At the public hearing?
yeah, we have the ordinance in front of us, and we'll go through the process of discussing that. That probably would be the appropriate time.
Well, now is your time to, whether you want to move forward with this.
To even have a public hearing?
Yeah.
So now is your,
Great. Well, I will say a couple things that I feel. I believe Mr. Peters hit on most of them. I appreciate Jack sounded to me like inform the public about dangers of wells, but I don't think that this document does that. I think this goes way beyond that and starts requiring inspections and that kind of thing. And I think that opens up a whole nother kind of can of worms as to, it doesn't really define what that is. You do an inspection, you find something wrong, what you have to fix. It just opens it totally up. I envision under this language that you could get to the point where virtually every acreage that's sold, you have to put a new well on it. And I don't believe that that's where we're going or want to go at all. So I really have a lot of problems with the language specifically in this. I agree with Rick, it puts the realtors as representatives on the line. That just isn't something that can be possible. I think it is a little vague on, what they are inspecting. And I think we're getting mixed up between, most people inspect the water quality. I don't think a lot of people inspect the actual physical condition of the well necessarily. So which of those are we trying to accomplish here? So I think that's a big question. Every property already has the groundwater hazard statement that's filed at time of closing. It says whether there's a well on the property or not. Talks about whether they're used wells or abandoned wells and what to do with abandoned wells. So I guess at this point in time, I have some big concerns about the ordinance moving forward at all. But maybe the hearing's the appropriate time.
What would the board's reaction be to having a couple of board members meet with both, if you will, both sides to discuss? It sounds like that there is some underlying reason to at least take a look at this, and there's clearly some reason not to necessarily accept as presented, at least that's what I'm getting from this. What would your reaction be to doing that? And then coming back to this board with some recommendation.
I think we're kind of getting cart before the horse a little bit. I mean, it would be, I think Jack said, the third county in the whole state that would have this. So I understand this is a huge problem for some properties, but not all properties. And I think this is more of a realtor who's negotiating the transaction, not becoming part of the transaction deal. And there's remedies in the current sale that protect people. My concern is we're gonna end up with properties you can't sell. You'll have acreages sitting out there that nobody's gonna be able to buy because they can't put a $20,000 well into an $18,000 property, or whatever the property is. Do I think there may be a good common ground? Maybe, but I think this ordinance needs to go back and be looked at, and maybe Jack needs to sit down with some realtors, and take it back to the Board of Health or something and look at it there.
I think the realtors are doing a good job now, watching the wells when they get sold, having inspections done. I've been a realtor for 35 years, and I've never sold an acreage where the well wasn't inspected and it was safe for human consumption. Sooner or later, the property's gotta get sold, and the responsibility lies on the buyer. And after it's done, how can we hold the realtor responsible 10 years down the road that his well goes bad?
The buyers in every transaction in the contracts have inspection times. And that's for furnaces and wells and anything they want to inspect. And, I think some of the responsibility is on the buyer to inspect what they want. And if they choose not to in that process, I just don't think it's right now it's a government place to put these kind of restrictions on it.
And I think Jack is doing exactly what public health hired him to do. Look at ways to protect people's health when it comes to, time of transfer types things, well, septic. I mean, he's out inspecting these things every day and sees what happens. But I just, at this point with this ordinance, I think, it could be handled in a much better way without government, county getting involved with it.
And usually that's the only time the well gets inspected, is when at the sale. Somebody might live there 20 years and never inspect the well again. And that's bad.
Well, if it's that big a concern, then I'm not, and I'll pick it on Jack. I understand Jack's doing his job and all that. And I know some wells aren't good, but then we should put an ordinance in that says every well needs to be inspected. Why are we just doing it
Twice a year,
or never?
Did you have any further
I
comment?
think there's just a little bit of misinterpretation on inspection. I get this from realtors, I'm not blanking all realtors, but I'm getting this, that an inspection just includes a water test, and that's it. But that's the impression, and I know that's what is coming across. By realtors asking me to do a well inspection. I said, I don't have any capacity to do a well inspection under the Board of Health. All I can do is take a water sample. So it's up to the property owners and the realtors, because they're representing both sides, to make sure that they're informed, and if that's the case, at least at that point, the realtors inform these property owners that they should have their well inspected by a qualified person, whether that be a certified well driller, certified pump installer, somebody that gives these people protection. Now, so I'm saying, Keith and Merrill, is when you ask for a water inspection or well inspection, it's not that. It's just this plain old water test that you're getting. And if it comes back bad, I tell the person how to chlorinate the well, I take another sample. There's no inspection of that well on a physical basis.
I guess everyone I've had done, they've had Phil go out, or the pump, prior to the well, go out and pump it and check the capacity of it, see how many gallons per minute. I mean, if you're buying an acreage, I want, the realtors tell these people that, they're hire a qualified well inspector, go out and have it pumped. It takes the liability off of them. But that's happening now. It is, it really is, it's happening now.
Well, I'll tell you, in those 4 cases that I presented before, buyer had the property for 5 years. And he had to sell his property. I was called for a water test. And when I came back to do the resampling of that that well. I said, can I look at that well? He said, sure. I opened it up. It was an open casing this big, cracked on the side. There was nobody that informed him 5 years ago to get a well inspection, because he didn't know anything about it. One property had 5 wells on it, all of them open. One of them had clean water, they had 5 wells. 5 of those wells were open. Some were this big, some were this big. I had no authority at all to inform anybody about that. And this same person bought that property 3 years prior with the same problem.
He didn't know there was 5 wells on the property? Is that what
5
he said?
wells in that property.
He didn't know.
He knew it. He was cut, all that groundwater hazard statement says, do you have a well on your property? And I say, how good it is.
But, I mean, we also have to draw the line of personal responsibility here.
I agree.
I mean, if I'm buying a property, I have responsibility, and I don't need to share that with other people that are helping me in a transaction. I mean, if I'm out buying a farm, I'm gonna look, I mean, I've gotta take personal responsibility for some of this too.
And I agree with that. But the thing is that, and you can correct me, realtors, if I'm wrong, do you represent both sides of these individuals? Or they just have one side? But it's a health issue here. We're not talking about just a transaction. We're talking about a health issue. If somebody dies from this, then you're gonna be called up, I'll tell you that.
But just to be clear, this ordinance is requiring the inspection part, so Jack is correct. Right now, I think a lot of the litters just do the water test itself, don't inspect the actual well. But there's where I get into problems. What is the inspection gonna entail? You know, is it just visually looking at the top to make sure there isn't anything? Are you pulling pumps? Where are we gonna draw the line? So again, I still have a problem with that. But then also, it's a government, my main problem is it's a government overstepping where I think they should be. I could argue your same argument with furnaces. There's no state rules or laws say we have to inspect furnaces on a property, and they can be just as deadly and dangerous. So that's the buyer that's responsible for choosing to do that on a furnace or not. Most of them, probably 99% of them, get inspected. So I guess I still fall back to, I believe this is an overstepping government on this particular issue.
Jack, when you go out and you sample a well, you find something that is what you perceive to be a problem, I'm assuming that you're informing the property owner at that time.
When I get a water sample back and has an E. coli or a fecal coliform in it, or coliform, I inform them that they should have somebody look at that well. I don't physically go out.
So you don't physically go out and do that?
Not all the time. Sometimes I do. This one that I'm referring to, that I took 2 weeks ago, I did it. That was easy to get to. Some of these wells you can't get to because they have bales of hay on, 2x4s, whatever else they got on. This had a manhole cover. I could just pull it off. So immediately that was an open well.
You also, that brings up another question real quick. Where you have several wells, lots of property has what I call the animal well. Are we talking about this ordinance would cover those too? Well, if it's not for human consumption well,
It says it covers them.
are we doing that?
Covers all wells.
It covers all wells. So if you have a well out there that really you're only watering your garden, there's a lot of those wells. Are we going to demand that they be fixed before sale now? So I just think it's overreaching, I just really do.
You know, the great thing about this is that I had an opportunity to inform the public of the problem. And I agree with anything you guys decide, but thank you for the opportunity to educate the people here, because it's a crucial issue. I don't want to see, if I have anybody killing my watch yet, I don't want, because this is E. coli. You're not talking about just liquid bacteria, you're talking serious health. So, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm Judy Castro, county reporter. I'm coming at it from the other side. Is this something that would just be noticed to the buyer or to the people, or is this something that will be recorded along with the groundwater?
It will not be recorded.
Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
E. coli is deadly.
Yes.
what needs to be done to get E. coli out of these wells? How many wells do you estimate have E. coli?
Well, they're gonna be open wells. And, you know, I have no idea, but it's not a lot of numbers as far as time of transfer. Last year was really an exceptional year when I got 4 out of 6 in a month. This last year, I don't think I even had 6 time of transfers on acreages. So it's been a down year for acreages. So it's not like it's gonna be a everyday occurrence. Most of the wells in the county have properly wellheads, well sealed. They won't have any involvement at all. Just be an inspection. But these unsafe wells are the ones I'm looking at.
If someone gets sick and God forbid dies, is there any sort of responsibility on anyone's part or any particular agency's part? Or is it just buyer beware?
It's buyer beware.
Thank you.
Well, along with that, it sounds like a demanding matter, and I go through it, I understand it. We have to look at all the sides too. One unintended consequence of this is when we get into a situation where we've had a well, and usually we have it inspected, not just the water inspected. We tell buyers, get somebody out there to look at the well. We understand the condition of the property fully. When a problem is found, just like with the septic tanks, there was a certain amount of exemption in the septic tank law of the state. And there's nothing entailed in there on either doing a waiver system to allow the seller or buyer to move forward with time transfer, the promise bound, money needs to be built up to have the problem fixed. And this doesn't cover any of that. That'd be something if we went forward with that as a realtor, I'd like to see. But on the other hand, why are we doing this time of transfer when a lot of properties aren't going to sell them? Why are we, over the next 5 years, asking everybody that has an acreage in Webster County to allow it to be inspected and some type of an ordinance in place to bring that up to code?
One thing about the well inspections compared to the septic inspections is we're ingesting water here. We're ingesting a contaminant, whereas the septic system, they're not. But I'm not saying that this ordinance is perfect by any means. It can be readjusted, but I would think, and I hope, that there is something strong enough that would make the realtors or the lawyers or the property owners have that inspected by a qualified inspector. That's all I'm asking for this.
From a realtor standpoint, Jack, we can't force a client to do anything. We can discuss it with them. That's their option. There's no forcing. That's their option.
I agree. That's
And
where
you keep
that's where
trying
you
to drive,
that's
you
where
keep
you and
trying
I
to drive
differ.
us in with responsibility, and we can't be responsible. We are not party to a contract. Period.
Look, if you want to go ahead and not inform and get.
I didn't say not formal. You're trying to tie us with responsibility, which we are not. We do not have a contractual relationship to.
Yeah, I understand. I think we've given this adequate attention at the moment, and so consequently, it would seem to me that we have a couple of choices here. First of all, you can make no motion, which in essence means that we move on to the next item with nothing done. You can make a motion, and I'll entertain motion 2. I'll go ahead and set a time and date, and we'll vote on that. I can entertain a motion not to set a time and date as well. So what's your pleasure here, Jim?
I think we just make a statement that we ask that they just be reevaluated by the Board of Health and the person, and see if there is common ground that something can be brought forward to. That's been this time it doesn't appear that the board's ready to set time and date.
All right, so I'm not hearing anybody wanting to make a motion on this item at the moment. And if there is no motion, we will move on with lunch. Okay. Thank you very much, Jim. Thanks for your input. Item number 9 is to approve and authorize chair to sign utility permit application for Mid-American Energy to remove 2 existing poles and install 4 new taller poles along the west side of Sampson Avenue to raise overhead electric line over new entrance approximately 2,335 feet north of 180th Street in Section 12, Township 89 North, Range 28 West, Cooper Township.
Mr. Chairman, I move item number 9.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the authorize the chair to assign utility permit with Mid-American Energy to remove two existing poles. Comments, questions? Receiving none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 10 is to approve and authorize the chair to sign certificate of completion of site preparation of industrial facility by CJ Bio-American Incorporated, 1946 Harvest Avenue, and Cargill Incorporated, 1950 Harvest Avenue, in northeast quarter of Section 19, Township 89 North, Range 29 West, per agreement for private development dated September 11, 2012.
Mr. Chairman, I move item 10.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve and authorize the chair to sign certificate of completion of site preparation. Questions, comments about this item?
Comment.
Please do.
Part of our development agreement with CJ Bio-America is that the county would reimburse CJ $2.5 million of their costs that were involved in preparing the physical plant site. And this would be paid for with the incremental increase in taxation that CJ Bio-America will be paid every year. They have submitted the documents showing their contracts and payments on the site preparation. Contracts and for site preparation by CJ exceeded $10 million. We had our county engineer review these. They seem to be in line with what he sees, their work costs and things like that. So it appears to the county that CJ has met their requirement of spending at least $2.5 million for site preparation. So this is just we will prepare the documents to give to CJ saying that we certified that they did spend that and fulfilling contract. Is that correct, Randy?
Yes.
Any questions concerning this item? Moving on, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 11 is to approve and authorize the chair to sign an agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation for roadway maintenance on institutional roads within Brushy Creek Recreation Area, as requested by authorized Department of Natural Resources personnel.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move item 11.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we approve and authorize the chair to sign an agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation. Mr. Wells, your comments?
Just for clarification, Webster County does have responsibility to take care of the main line road through the Brushy Creek recreational area. This agreement, we're working on a long-term agreement, but the best we can do right now are one-year fiscal year agreements where they, it's mostly needed for Webster County because we have equipment out of Lehigh and so forth, versus the DOT, which is South Florida, to do incidental granular blading of roads, blading of granular roads or snow removal of like their boat ramps and other incidental roads that are under their jurisdiction. So that's all this agreement's about. What happens is upon either an understanding or upon request, we respond and do what they ask, is turn in a bill for our labor, equipment, materials, and it gets paid. Will not get paid without this formal agreement.
Any questions, Mr. Wells? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Comes now Ed Morrison, representing workers' compensation carrier, to discuss loss ratio, mod factors, and premium. Welcome, Mr. Morrison. You're on.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to come visit with you. It's my annual loss control site visit. Reviewed your letter the other day, appealing your risk designation. As your loss control rebel, I to let you know that I'm going to fully endorse your appeal. I expect that to be voted upon and approved. Okay.
And that's January 30th.
Yes. The other sheets, hand out the binder sheets. Okay. You take a look at those, so they're, especially at the bottom, that's what we're going to look at, is your experience mod factors for the last 5 years, and that number directly above that, your loss ratio. We'll be dropping off that 92% victim to 96%, so it's kind of an even swath, right? The only area of concern that I want to talk with you a little bit about is we need to continue to be supportive of Amy and what she's trying to do. The county's implemented some very good programs, return to work, light duty, modified duty being one of those. We talked previously about the impact that Split Point has had. That's where NCCI, National Council on Compensation Insurance, has changed the manner in which we promulgate and experience mod facts. We've raised the caps on indemnity claims from $5,000 to $10,000. If you look at your claims history the last few years, you're going to see we have some pretty substantial indemnity claims that are going to have a real big influence on our mod in the upcoming years.
Excuse me, maybe explain the indemnity to us.
Indemnity is paid time off. So we have claims where typically they can up to 35 to 40% of the total cost of the claim is to pay somebody while they're off. The county has a return to work policy with likely to be modified duty. We need to take a hard look at that, evaluate it, and see if it's being correctly and fully utilized. I can't attest to that. I don't work here, but I do see the numbers. And as your law school rep, I want to express my concern with some of those. So I talked with Amy this morning. We both agreed she's going to do that. Take a look at this. I would recommend that the board get behind that effort, that we better utilize return to work and light duty modified.
Oh, I think you covered it pretty well.
Ed, the only comment or the only question I would have for you is the experience that we have had, our frequency tends to be down, and we are yet haunted by some older claims. Both those things are true.
That is true. We have a couple indemnity claims in 2013 that will impact the mod next year when we pick up that year. Those are the ones that I'm kind of concerned about.
I see. Okay. We're not out of the woods completely.
Not yet.
Okay. Any questions, Fred?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. Moving along, citizens' opportunity to address the board without items on the agenda. Has anyone anything for the good of the order? Mr. Ryan?
Yes, sir. We do have a environmental department here in Webster County. I guess that implies that the Webster County Board of Supervisors are concerned about public health. What level of concern do we have for public health in Webster County? I was just been hearing a lot about buyer beware here today. When is it appropriate for the Webster County Board of Supervisors, being a regulatory body, to step in and make certain regulations in regard to water quality? To be more specific, just a general broad question.
I think that's an excellent question.
Well, Mark's on public health, so
Clark and I are both on public health, and that is a separate commission. Public health, as an environmental person, hired to get right to go out and maintain time transfer inspections and well inspections or concerns upon request. You know, I'm all for doing anything and everything, and I'm assure you the rest of the Board of Health Commission is all for doing anything and everything to ensure public health and public safety, but those are two different things. We can't cross that line into safety, we're on health. So I'm not against an ordinance down the road that deals with wells, but I think it needs to be an ordinance that is either, I would rather see a state, across the state. You know, I don't think realtors need to be party of the transaction. I think we're crossing lines when we do that. I think there are remedies currently in place. We've got a great association of realtors here that work very hard to maintain the reputation they have. I've dealt with them personally on properties that they have had people come in and inspect wells and septics, you know. So I think the ordinance is kind of, at this point, this ordinance is one that needs more thinking to go back into.
I understand what you're saying, but the Webster County Board of Supervisors is the ultimate regulatory power, right?
not ultimate.
State's
The
all
state.
in.
Well, I think we've seen with our care centers what the state has done as far as regulation there. So I'm not much for trusting the state to regulate much. But I'm just trying to understand the process here and what the thinking is behind it. Water quality would seem to be a concern, especially if it's as Mr. Bradley described it.
I don't think that we're disputing that anything about water quality here. I think what we're saying is that this ordinance is presented, needs to have some refinement done before it's actually brought forward and considered by the board, because, obviously things are in that ordinance that are contrary to what common practice is right now. And I think there needs to be a clear definition of what the responsibility of the health department is on their inspections, and what the result of that inspection will be. Whether it's, to me, there's a lot more work that needs to go into it before we adopt it as an ordinance.
The health department, just so I'm clear, the health department cannot arbitrarily regulate these things. That authority lies with you. I mean, as the supervisor.
We are the legislative body. And
Right,
we,
okay.
We create the ordinance, yes. It's their responsibility to enforce and to, so, it's a tool. And I guess I'd rather take time to make sure that we have the proper tool rather than jump in and have something that's not designed properly.
Thank you.
And whether it's appropriate for this board to be doing it. There are only 2 or 3 other counties in the state that are doing it, and so that automatically leads me, is this the appropriate body?
Well, I will say this, though, this is my personal opinion. I mean, I would rather have local control than the state.
But, and I agree with that, but then I also, and I don't want to open this back up again, but it's just a point of, I understand water quality is very important, but I could list 100 other health hazards in everybody's home that are just as equally important. Are we going to regulate all of those? It's just a matter of where we draw the line on what our responsibility is.
Really, my question, yes, sir.
If I could throw in, there is an educational value here that, the county does have a responsibility to help educate the buyers and sellers on the well system. Does it have to be an ordinance? Does it have to be something with a lot of teeth in it? But just educating people, as we found out with radon, there's no legislation on radon right now, but the push and the educational tools that have been thrown out there by the state have brought it to the forefront of every buyer we have walked into our office. And with that, they're having more and more inspections done, more and more mediation is happening throughout the city, and people just understand it better with no law being enacted. At the state level, there is a group trying to get mandatory radon mediation done upon testing at time of transfer too, and that's failed a couple times. This could be something that could be looked at in a different way, that you can get Mr. Bradley out there to look at these wells more often.
Okay, thank you. I believe, Michael, that the modus operandi of this particular board has been to be completely transparent. I think we can represent this as a first call. I think that we are responsible to every citizen in the county, every business, every private individual. I think it is our job to listen to what the public has to say in general, and then go from there in terms of establishing what the needs are for this particular item. So I'm not sure that we could last this, but in the same breath, I think we let it run its course. Okay, anything else from the citizen standpoint? Board Supervisor reports?
I had a CBB meeting last week, and due to the hotels being full, due to construction over the years and all the events coming to the city, we had our largest draw ever. So money's coming back into the city through that. I mean, it's just another way of money coming back into the city. CBB helps events come to town. We give money to any organization that's bringing somebody to town in an event. So it's just another way of more money coming into Fort Dodge that you wouldn't think of. We had our largest draw ever. The hotels have been full.
Mark? Merrill? I'll pass on the opportunity. Entertain motion off the claims.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. We have an 8:45 drainage meeting.
8:45?
Excuse me, 10:45 drainage meeting. Thank you for that correction. So we will go to that meeting in about minutes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.